Class is in session, and today what we're going to teach you, or what we're going to teach Dan here, young Padawan Dan, is going to learn how to build cedar gates, because it came to my attention that Dan knows how to build cedar gates, and he did a video on this, and I watched it, and I was like, he is not using all the secrets and tricks of our trade. So what I want to do is I want to teach young Padawan Dan here how to build a gate using the most effective methods possible so that it's as simple as it can possibly be. Because I've watched tons of people over the years really struggle with gates, and I remember the very first gate I built, cedar gate, and I built it in somebody's driveway, and then I went to hang it, and I'm like, now why don't all these boards line up? They were all staggered, and it's because I built it square, and we ended up having a racked gate or needing a racked gate, and everything needed to be at an angle. So whether it's square or whether it needs to be at an angle, you can make all your boards line up, and you can make it fit perfectly every time with very little effort using the secrets we're going to teach you right now. So let's talk about some unique problems that we have. Because we only offer Postmaster posts, we have steel here, and that can create some unique problems. And one of the questions we get all the time is, do I need to do anything special to be able to build a gate with a Postmaster post? And the answer is only ever so slightly. We can still use the same exact post, and I've heard other people say that they like to take two of these Postmaster posts and double them up, but we haven't found that that's necessary. 99.9% of the time your gate's closed and all the strength is this way in the fence, and so we don't need to worry so much unless we had a really heavy gate or something like that, in which case we do have some special posts that we can sell you made specifically for gates, or you can double these up, run them back to back, and weld them together on your job site. But what we found is homeowners doing their own fences don't oftentimes also have welders. No need to do anything special as long as you're not going over maybe 5 feet or so. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to need to cut a piece of wood, a 2x4, to fit in this and fill that gap. The only reason we're doing that is that our hinges don't roll here. All it's doing is filling that gap so that we get a good level surface to build off of. And once we've done that, we'll screw that up here. No special tools needed. All we did was we took a crayon, held this up here, drew a line all the way down the board, and then we're going to take a skill saw that's quite conveniently missing some teeth because we've cut some things that we probably shouldn't over the years, and we're just going to rip this thing down. So even a skill saw that's missing a couple teeth can still cut.
Good?
Good. This thing will not be bearing any weight. It is simply a gap filler. And you can see on this post where we've already installed our gap filler for the latch side. So we did another gate video on this opening, and we've just kind of peeled it back so you can see everything that's going on. I don't have a tape measure either. Anybody got a tape measure here? Oh, look at that. Was it 6 inches?
Down a quarter, right there.
Okay, Andrew. For those of you that haven't seen some of the other videos on our cedar fences, what we're using now is 1 7/8" ring shank nails, and those are stainless steel, and that is so that we don't get any of that bleeding down our cedar pickets. Yeah, thank you.
Up a 1/2 inch. Up 1/8. Right there.
I have 51.5 there, and I like to measure everywhere we're going to put a rail. So that one's 51.5. Yeah, that's we get about a 1/16. That's 5/8. We're going to do what we call build in place. So we're going to build this gate exactly where it's at right now. So 51.5.
Hold on. I want to measure them out since you got to measure.
Okay, you can go for it.
Okay.
Do it. Do it. There's a square. And what I like to do when I'm doing this is I like to have my gloves on, and then I like to hold it like this, and then pretty much exactly like this. That ensures that you'll have the maximum amount of fun. And we're all about having fun. So if you go like this, that works really well because you're also supporting the wood. Plus, the last thing you would want to do is cut into this grass down here. No, I'm kidding. That's not what we want to do. It's also be really good if you just start right back here. All right. So we have that right at the top of the post. We have that right at the top of the post because that should be our top rail, right? Andrew? So what he's doing is just toenailing those in there. That'll just hold those in place. For a blade that's missing like half of its teeth, that thing's still doing pretty good. Ooh, this tape measure's nice. 26.5, is that what you got? Is that what you're doing between the rails? Yeah, this tape measure sucks. There you go. 26 5/8. And then 27.5. Roll off, okay. 26 5/8. 26 5/8 and 54. Oh, and now I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, well, that's not a very good fit, Mr. Olson. It isn't gonna matter. When we get all said and done, that is not gonna matter because we need a gap there anyhow. And you'll see why. Are these the better rails or the not as good rails?
These are the better rails.
Oh, you used our $10 ones for a test? Oh, you guys are really worth it. They used the good rails on you.
Okay.
Oh, you already got it. Okay, you ready? This is where it gets a little tricky. So we're gonna build our brace. We're gonna hinge off of this post so the brace always goes up away from your hinges. That's very critical. Now, we don't want it all the way to the end because we're gonna end up cutting that off, right? You ready? Yep. You got about 1/2 inch, okay. Now, I don't like to go and figure out this angle, so that's the way I like to do the brace. When we're building a gate, we don't want this angle to fall below 45 degrees. Anytime we fall below 45 degrees, we need to think about a different way to brace it. We can do 2 diagonals, but we can't ever exceed 45 degrees. Basically, what I want to see is I want to see an angle that's like that. If I got down here to where my angle was like that, that's too great. So the angle right down here is over 45 degrees. I can't fall more than 45 degrees this way. And you could also use this square to find out. This is at 45 degrees exactly, so I could use that. And if my bracing, as long as my bracing does not fall down, if it falls down here, I've exceeded 45 degrees. As long as it's anywhere up here, then I'm less than 45 degrees. See that? Less than 45 degrees. Anytime you exceed that, then instead of have a compression brace, you actually have a tension brace and it's not doing its job. It needs to be able to support that weight at the end of the gate. And you'll have to tell me where you want it. It should be somewhere right in there, huh? Yep. Because we marked that right there, we can see exactly where this rail needs to line up, but it should be about a 1/2 inch in there, was my intended method. Okay.
Handle. Or just let that thing go.
Okay. We don't have a bump board, so this is what we're going to use for now. You want to just hold that up there. So normally what I'd like to use is some sort of a bump board, and there's a product out there called a straightaway. Look it up. We'll provide you with a link to that down below. And they work really good for getting all your picket tops so you don't have to use a string or anything. Need the gap. We'll figure it out later on. So we can do 1 and a really narrow picket here, or we can do 2 smallish.
2 smallish.
It's kind of the way I lean. It's a little bit more work, but I think it looks better. It blends a little bit better if whatever you're doing is not right on the ends. So that's typically the way we do it. 3 and 9/16, huh? So it's worth noting that normally we would have a table saw here and we'd just rip all these, but that's out on a job site, and so we can't shut down production for that. But it would be typically, so we wouldn't even be using a skill saw, we'd be using a compound miter saw and a table saw. So this is slowing that process down just a little bit.
You can easily take a piece of scrap and lay it over your picket that you cut to transfer that dog ear from the old picket to your new picket.
If they're a little tight, you can peek them like this and wedge them in there. You gotta be a little bit.
The theory is if I miss any, Andrew's gonna scream because I'm gonna hit him.
Dan, hey Dan. Focus, you squirrel.
I got so much going on right now.
This spacing was just set random. It's not a 48-inch gate, it's not a 36-inch gate, it was 51.5 inches. And so when you have some random spacing, which is usually what we do because we just set our post randomly, wherever the center of the hole is, knowing that it's gonna be about 48 inches. Inevitably, what we're gonna end up, even if it was 48 inches, we'd end up needing to trim a picket. Now we had the option of we could have used a full picket and a really narrow picket, one that's like that wide, and it would have looked really awkward because we wouldn't have had our dog ears here. It's a lot easier to hide that picket and make it look good by cutting 2 of them down rather than 1. That took us a little bit longer. In the overall scheme of things, it looks a lot better. So we trimmed 2 pickets to fit this 7 1/8 inch gap instead of just cutting 1 picket that was like 1.5 inches wide. Now what we're going to do is we're going to show you the easiest way to hang the gate. So the gate's already in the opening, it's already built all the way across the opening, all the tops line up, and if you come around the back, if we had rails on both sides, what you would see is you would see all of our rails lining up exactly like they should, even if we were on a slope, because I didn't have to do any special calculations to figure that out. Which leads me to another thing. We didn't talk about if this is on a slope, this is a pretty square gate, but we might have had to hold our 2x4s across here and then mark them to cut them at an angle. And we didn't have to do that here because it was still pretty square. If you were going down a pretty steep hill, you would need to cut that at an angle. The other thing to think about if you're gonna go down a hill is you always want to hinge your post or hinge your gate off the low post. Let's say we had a hill and now all of a sudden our 2x4s are running like this. What we would want to do is we would want to hinge the gate off of this post, no matter what, because as that gate opens, it's going to get further away from the ground. Now, if you hinge it off of this post and our hill's going like this, the minute you try and open that gate even a little bit, it's going to run into that hill and you won't be able to open the gate. So you always have to hinge off of the low post. Like I say, again, because this is flat or fairly flat, we're going to hinge it off this, and we probably will need to trim just a teeny bit off of these just to make that gate swing, just because we're so close to the ground there. Not a big deal. When we get the gate cut free, we'll just trim 1 inch off the whole bottom and call it good. Now we have our gate here, and you know what we could do is we could now take all of our screws out and we could have our gate flopping around in the wind and doing all sorts of funny things, couldn't we? Mm-hmm. But the easier way to do that is, while it's still secured to the fence, we'll just put our hinges on right now. But what you'll see, so we'll center this right on our gap right here, and what I would suggest is probably about a 1/4 inch here, and then your gap on the other end needs to be a 1/2 inch to maybe 5/8 of an inch to allow enough room for your latch. 1/4 to 3/8 here, 1/2 inch to 5/8 down on your latch end, and that should give you enough gap. So, and then we're just going to line this thing up just like that. Yeah, that one's good. All these are 1/2 inch socket. So these holes right here, because we have the Postmaster, these holes are going through steel. Now that's a good thing for you as well, because it gives you extra security for a latch. So we're not just counting on the threads. This thing's going to be drilled all the way through that Postmaster post to the other side, and then we'll put a carriage bolt in it, which we sell. We've got black carriage bolts so that it can all look good and match up. And if you really wanted to, you can put carriage bolts on all of these. You just have to order those separately. And he angled that bolt. If you'll see, he kind of angled that over just so he could make sure he hits that Postmaster post. If you're ordering stuff from us and you know you're going to have Postmaster posts and you're going to put these kind of hinges on, make sure that you also get some 5/16 by 1 1/4 inch bolts for these. You'll need a minimum of 3. If you just can't get it as to drill a brand new hole and not use that hole, just come over to where you're in the middle of this post right here.
What he's talking about is not using this hole and then drilling your hole just a little bit further back, like right in here.
If that hole was halfway between that hole and that, it'd be perfect right there for a Postmaster. The new Postmasters are a little bit different size, so that might not be as big of a conflict either. This is actually the old version 1 of the Postmaster, so the version 2 is slightly different. So you can see this is the new Postmaster, that's the original. And you can see that they're a little bit wider. They've got a wider flange on them and they're a little wider here. So now that we've got our hinges on here, we can take all these screws out and this gate should swing. And we didn't have to hold the gate exactly perfect. Everything should just line up exactly the way we want it. So we've got 2 things we're gonna do now. Because this gate was dragging on the ground, we're gonna go ahead and quickly trim a little bit off. If you're really tight to the ground and your gate doesn't swing freely, you may have to trim just a little bit off and make your gate just a touch shorter. Good?
Yep.
So again, we'd want a 1/2 inch clearance on this end and about 3/8 on that end. 1/2 to 5/8 and then 1/4 to 3/8 on that end. Okay, we're ready. If this would have had all the clearance, I could have taken a reciprocating saw and that would have been what I used to do this. I wouldn't have even unhung the gate. The only reason I did is because we needed to trim a little bit off the bottom. So we're able to show you how we do that as well. And right now I need to go put out somebody else's fire because I'm on the fire department and the fire whistle's going off. So
This 2x4 that goes, your middle 2x4, we're gonna put a latch in it. So it is very important that we put the latch, the catch, at the center of that 2x4. This piece is going to get attached to the gate. This is going to lock into that. We're going to screw into the gate here, but we need some meat and potatoes behind that. See, so we want to go right into that rail. We want to screw right into that rail. That's my meat and potatoes. So we're going to drill through the Postmaster again, and we are going to use the black 5/16 by 2 1/4 carriage bolts. Okay, so I have just a piece of scrap to show you something here, and because I'm telling you that we're going to use a carriage bolt to carriage this latch into the Postmaster post. Now I know what you're probably thinking, if you would have just used a wider piece of 2x4, you wouldn't have any of this problem. You are absolutely correct, but if you don't rip that 2x4 down, ultimately what you're going to have is you're going to have that big of a piece of nailing point. So you're going to have all this meat, that 2 inches, 2.5 inches just hanging out by itself. Over time, it's going to naturally want to kind of split there because there's nothing supporting it. So that is the reason that we did what we did, and that is the reason that we're doing what we're doing right now. So all we did there was we just drilled out the hole so that the bolt sits nice and pretty. The reveal is beautiful. Just make sure that that looks nice and level across here. And you can put that handle on there however you want. You can do just like I did. You can take the handle and you can put it perfectly over that. It just 100% depends on how you frame out that backside. If you don't have a nailer back there to receive that lag bolt, then you're gonna have to do it the way that I just did it. So, this is everything that we've learned today. We thank you. Wait, hold on. So now that we are done and we put the latch on, we put the handle on, we got the gate hung, we showed you how to do all that cool, awesome stuff. The only thing we got to do now is put on the anti-sag cable. That is in a different video. So this is us just saying that we're done, showing you how we do. And stay tuned for next time when we show you how we do again. But I want to leave you with this. Always ask yourself if the juice is worth the squeeze. You have a good dang day. After you get all those steps done, you put all your tools away, you clean up, then you just start walking through that gate. You can use that gate daily. In and out, out and in and out, through the gate.